All right, let's get right into it. If you're working in UK financial services, you know the feeling. Navigating compliance can feel like a high-wire act, can't it? The rules are incredibly complex, the stakes are sky high, and the pressure, well, it's pretty much constant. Today, we're going to break down one of the most challenging parts of that balancing act, how you manage suspicious activity reports. You know, for any firm that's regulated by the FCA, this whole thing is way more than just ticking boxes on a form. Compliance is the absolute bedrock of your operation. It's how you build and keep the trust of your clients, your partners, and, of course, the regulator. Let's be honest, it's your license to operate. It's as simple as that. And that leads us to the really crucial question, doesn't it? When you have to make that judgment call on a suspicious activity report, a SAR, can you stand by that decision with 100% confidence that the FCA comes knocking? Can you prove not just what you decided, but the entire thought process, the why behind it? That's the question that keeps a lot of compliance professionals staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. And you know what? That anxiety is completely justified. Because when we're talking about SARs, getting it wrong has some incredibly high costs, both personally and for your career. Look, this isn't just about the company getting a slap on the wrist. We're talking about the UK's Proceeds of Crime Act 2002. And Section 330, well, it makes this personal. It puts the responsibility directly on the individual. So if you have what they call reasonable grounds for suspicion and you fail to make a report, the penalties are, to put it mildly, severe. 5 years. That's not a typo. That's the potential personal criminal liability a money laundering reporting officer is facing. A number like that, it really forces you to take a hard look at your internal processes and just how you make these critical decisions. So where do things usually go sideways? Well, it often kicks off with the fact that suspicion can be a pretty subjective thing. But honestly, the bigger risk, and one that so many firms trip over, is not properly documenting the decision to not submit a SAR. If you can't show your work, that decision is basically indefensible. Then you got in the headache of managing timelines for consent SARs, and you can see how easily just one weak link can snap the whole compliance chain. Okay, so the risks are very, very clear, but it really doesn't have to be this constant source of stress. Let's talk about how having a structured framework can bring some much-needed certainty to money laundering reporting officers, MLROs, and their teams. So here's one approach from a firm called Compliance Consultant. You might know them as the Compliance Doctor. They've actually built something they call the SAR Decision Making and Documentation Toolkit, and it's designed to hit every single one of those pain points we just talked about. The whole point of a framework like this is to get compliance teams out of that gray area of just going with their gut. It's about moving toward a system that's structured, consistent, and most importantly, legally defensible. It's about creating an audit trail that's basically bulletproof for every single call you make, especially the call not to report something. So how does it actually work? Well, this toolkit breaks it down into a really clear 5-stage process. It gives you a consistent method to follow from the second an internal report hits your desk all the way through to what happens after the decision is made. And the key word here is consistency. It makes sure nothing falls through the cracks and every single step is on the record. Right, so that's the theory. But let's get into the practical side of things and see how a framework like this actually performs when faced with the kind of real-world scenarios that compliance teams deal with every single day. Let's put this into practice. Imagine you get a report about some unusual cash deposits. The framework gives you the specific questions and checks to document exactly why your suspicion is more than just a gut feeling. Or how about a complex corporate payment to the UAE? It guides you right through that tricky consent SAR process. And here's the big one. What if you decide an overseas property purchase isn't suspicious? The toolkit gives you a structure to build a rock-solid, defensible case for not filing that SAR. It's all about having a robust process, no matter the outcome. And a truly complete framework is more than just that core decision process. It should have detailed guidance on that slippery suspicion threshold. It needs to include tools like a tipping-off prevention matrix, basically a checklist to make sure you don't accidentally alert a suspect, which, as you know, is a massive no-no. It's really about having all those critical supporting tools right there in one place. And the real-world value, it comes from having tools you can use right now. The idea is to have templates you can customize, like a standardized internal SAR form or a complete decision log that you can roll out this week. Think of them as the building blocks that can immediately make your compliance framework stronger. Which brings us to our final point. This really is about finding your path to defensible compliance. It's about taking back control of your SAR process using a proven, structured, and above all, practical framework. Honestly, the message couldn't be simpler. It's time to stop the second guessing, stop the uncertainty, and start building a robust, documented process that protects you, your senior managers, and your entire firm. So if your firm is ready to swap that compliance anxiety for real certainty, a structured toolkit could be exactly what you need. You can find out more about the specific solution from Compliance Consultant, the home of the compliance doctor. Just give them a call on 0800-689-0190 or use the link you see on screen to book a discovery call.